The Flash is just amazing. Seriously. It just continues to do things that I just have no words for because this is a show that is running on a budget. They don't have the type of Game of Thrones esque type of funds to burn millions of dollars on an episode, and it's quite amazing what they've achieved. So, what is up, guys? My name is Damien. Welcome back. Episode 2, titled Paradox, the conclusion to the Flashpoint premiere. You know, this show to me, I don't even know what to say. I really, really love this show. It's one of those shows that I would recommend to a lot of people that watch. Like, I'm really, really serious about TV shows, like high quality ones, and for this one to be able to hang with the big boys is just like I say it every week now at this point because it's amazing. This just shouldn't even be possible, but the writing is so strong. This is where you just know the Flash comics are there's so many stories to pull from. So, first of all, let me know what you guys think about the episode. I'm trying to figure out how to make time for this channel. It's really, really hard. It's hard enough doing clips, but I'm trying to cut time out of my schedule to do it. And I will do a channel update video a little while after this. So, let me know what you guys thought about the episode. Comment down below, and I will try to reply. Last week I did not get to reply to the comments. I read all of them, but I did not get to reply. Just haven't had time. It's ridiculous right now. So, where to begin? This episode to me is one of the best episodes in the entire show's history. It ranks in the top 10 probably because of just the way they have handled everything. I also like the fact that they included Arrow in the beginning there, Barry running to see, unfortunately, Felicity, but they included that, and that was nice. So, there's so much here. The Dr. Alchemy stuff, the fact that Killer Frost is now in play, at least she will be down the line, the changes to the timeline, very subtle, the introduction of Edward Claris yet again. It's really, really nice because, see, the rival, which I think I'm going to do a separate video on him because he's really known for being the Jay Garrick villain. Like, that's what he's most known for. But I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with his character because obviously it's not the last we've seen of him. And I'm looking forward to the Dr. Alchemy character, just exploring a little bit more about what he's going to be and some backstory. I really want to see that stuff because this is basically one of those shows where I think they should have some Arrow flashbacks just once in a while for characters like these villains. If you dedicated, I know it's really hard because you have your plot to and you need to push that, but when there are certain characters, especially like an alchemy type of guy, it would be kind of cool to see who they were before they became this person. Get a little insight into their daily life or something like that, or at least it's just one episode or a part of an episode they could dedicate to that would be really cool. Everything they're doing on this show continues to impress, like I said, and some of the timeline changes that I really liked. Cisco having the vibe, building the vibe suit rather, that was a nice change. You see, this I'm starting to see now what they intended to do with the Flashpoint storyline when they ended season 2. By him making the change, they're using the fact that time travel exists with this character to basically rectify and set some things up. Maybe initially when they started this show, they didn't really know how they were going to shape Killer Frost. Who knows? Maybe that was something that they hadn't really thought out and or thought too far ahead with. And now it's like this time traveling stuff that they've been doing. They're able to say, okay, hey, this is one of the changes to Barry going back in time and now fixing the timeline again. This is one of the changes that are present, setting her up to be Killer Frost because Caitlin Snow was always going to be Killer Frost. At least in my mind, that's when I started watching the show. That's what I wanted, and I didn't know how they were going to do it. Seeing Earth 2 Killer Frost was really nice, but I knew that I always wanted to see our Earth 1 Killer Frost, Caitlin Snow rather, become Killer Frost, and I wanted to see how she would do that. So really nice that they're gonna start building her character, setting her on that journey, that path to becoming that character. She's really more of a villain slash anti-hero in the comics, more so villain, sometimes anti-hero, like down the road, but I don't know what version of her we're gonna see, but it was really, really good. And Barry explaining to everyone the changes that he made how he stopped the Reverse Flash from killing his mom and all of that stuff that he did. It was nice to see that as well, because really you get to see these people, and they really do a good job. Like, they continue to, you can tell that they work really well together when they're filming. There's a lot of overall chemistry of the team, like having Joe there, Iris, Cisco, Caitlin, and all these characters. Soon we'll have Harrison Wells back again in the next episode. That'll be nice. I don't know how many episodes he's going to be on for, but having those types of characters in, you can see there's a certain level of chemistry that they have. They click well together, and seeing them all react to the news of Barry changing the timeline, like Joe himself says, like, this is a lot to take in. This is crazy, because what I liked about it is the fact that you have these human people. These are just regular folks that are trying to contemplate time travel, and it's really hard for them, because only a speedster, and maybe even not even Cisco, could really understand. So really only a speedster like Barry or Jay Garrick or any of the villain speedsters can really understand what is really taking place here, what is really happening. And Barry, he does a really good job, like Grant Gust rather, does a really good job of portraying the Barry character, as far as he's carrying a lot right now, and he really is able to establish the weight of the world type of persona at this point, and I really enjoy that. And I thought this episode was just well written, it was well directed, it was well paced. It was nice to have the Edward Claris character come back on. I like villain speedsters. I know they need to do something else with the Flash, but unfortunately for the Flash, because I myself personally had requested, or had said and had been vocal about, that I wanted other types of villains, like having all the rogues kind of come together and try to take the Flash on. But realistically, outside of Alchemy and Weather Wizard, and maybe if you want to say Captain Cold, these guys are pretty irrelevant. Let's be realistic. They're just not, they don't have that star power to keep up with the Flash, and it would take basically wits and some tactics to try to basically best him. Whereas when you have someone like Zoom was so menacing that it's hard to top that. And then of course Reverse Flash, who we know is the ultimate villain, so having him back again would be nice. But everything else, every other type of villain, the Flash is not really good when it comes to villains. He's not the type of tier of creativity, in my opinion, outside of speedsters, on the level of like Superman and Batman when it comes to villains. So it's really hard. So I understand why they're going to lean more towards speedsters, and having the rogues and other types of villains like that as more like side characters, minor threats throughout the season. And then they have the big bad, which is always going to be the big, powerful speedster. And it's really understandable why they would do that. So let me know what you guys think about that. And to finally touch on the big thing of this episode, the biggest thing, which is always the biggest thing in a lot of these episodes, because Barry and Iris, it's an interesting dynamic between the two of them, because I know there's a lot of people, like me personally, I hate the romance stuff when it's not handled correctly, like, and I've been very vocal about the way Arrow has handled it, because it's totally different on Arrow and the way they handle it, as opposed to the way it's handled on the Flash. So the Flash, it sets up this path of Barry and Iris where they're fated to be, but it's almost as if they're trying to fight the fact that they are fated to be. Like throughout the first season and a half, you could say they're together, they're not, they're getting closer, they're not, and it's kind of this back and forth, even if they're not aware of it. It's one of those things where they're just constantly on that journey, but they are so connected in each other's lives that's why they don't compare to like an Oliver and Felicity. You see, they have been together for way too long, just as friends, way before that, as kids, like this entire thing. And the entire concept of this, which is usually what the Snowberry fandom likes to throw out, is that they're related, or that they're kind of like they're related, brother and sister. It's definitely not like that. And the reason it's not like that is because his life was ruined, and he was forced to live with, or not forced, but that was the only option available, and Joe basically was being a good person and decided, hey, I'll adopt him for this time. But it's not exactly like he was adopted as a baby. If he was adopted as a baby and him and Iris were basically the same age, growing up together as infants into adulthood, it would have been a totally different dynamic in their relationship. I guarantee you it never would have been that way. But for Barry being like 10, 11, 12 years old, well, 10 realistically, and having his, or 9, I think it was, he says, right? I don't remember, but having his mom like taken from him and then his dad going to prison, he always liked Iris. He always liked her just as a person. They were just close, even as kids. So there was no reason for them to, there's no argument there. And they are always going to be, they're always going to be together. It's like, for example, and someone saying that Clark and Lois, like if they brought in a Felicity character and replaced the Lois Lane, it would be madness. There would be outrage. It just could never work. So everyone always knew that Clark and Lois were going to be together, like on Smallville or whatever the case, and the same trend follows suit here for the Flash. It's always going to be Barry and Iris, and the way he looks at her, there's no one else that will ever bring him satisfaction in life other than her. He will always be settling if he ever goes with anyone else. It'll never be enough because it's always going to be Iris. Like, for example, in the first season, him and Felicity, right? They had some scenes that he kissed her at one point. It's like on paper when you read off their traits and characteristics, yeah, they should be together, but there's not that chemistry click. There's not that passion, that fire. That's what's missing. There's not that kind of relationship. It's totally different. And we would always be stuck on Iris, so it never really made sense. And everyone that Iris dated, it never felt like it was enough. Like that time when they went on that double date, when Eddie Thawne was like jealous the way she kind of like, I don't know, he had something on his, just like he was eating like a hot dog, or he ate something and he had like a little bit of food on his face, on his mouth or whatever, and she kind of wiped it away, and both Eddie Thawne and Linda were looking at them like, what are you doing? Like, it was uncomfortable, it was kind of weird, but this is just, they are just meant to be, and it's just the reality. Now, even if he were to go back in time and undo everything again, and he changed the fact that they just kissed at the end of this episode, yet again, it still wouldn't matter. At the end of the day, by season 5, by season 4, whatever the case, they will be together. They will be in wedding. There'll probably be a wedding episode or at least a proposal before the end of the show. It's just the way it's going to happen. And they are amazing together. Their chemistry is on point. I can tell, and I'm not certain, of course, but they either they have some out of the world chemistry, or they really spend a lot of time together and try to understand these two characters and why they feel this way towards each other. And I'm sure they read some source material in the comics and stuff like that. And this just, to me, they really were well casted, and they seem really, really good together. So let me know what you guys think about that. But that end scene, that kiss, it was, that's the thing. As I know that generally girls will freak out of it. They're more into the romance related stuff. But for me, I'm still really into the romance stuff, just not as much as some of you ladies are. But seeing that tonight, I was smiling the entire time. It was on the level of Clark and Lois getting together on Smallville in season 10 officially. Well, they were together in season 9, but realistically in 10, when she knew about his powers and stuff, it was kind of on that level where you wait so long. And when she's sitting on that porch and he shows up and she starts smiling, it's just like in that moment, you just know that this is the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with. It's pretty clear, and I really like that. So it was a great episode. For me personally, I really just enjoyed it. 9.5 out of 10 for me. And I rate this show on a different scale. People think that when I hand out a 9.5, like sometimes I'll be vocal and say the score that I would give it out of 10. People think that I'm like comparing it on the same level of like Game of Thrones or something. It's like, no, it's not on that level, but I'm giving it a 9.5 on the CW scale of their type of shows and their quality, and it really has exceeded that. So this one was a little bit longer, but let me know what you guys think. I do appreciate the support. I apologize for the inactive nature of this channel. It's really difficult. I'm going to explain in another video on my Clips channel tonight. I will see you guys later. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe if you're new. I appreciate the support. And if you're a WestAllen fan, I know you're smiling. You're probably smiling right now. So comment down below and let me know what you thought about the scenes. I'll see you guys later. My name is Damien.